Growing up, I was always a big fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! From watching the anime as a kid while eating my Yu-Gi-Oh! Cereal, to playing the card game competitively back in high school, back when that was actually fun and you didn't have to watch a guy play solitaire for 30 minutes.
He's still going! It's my turn! When do I get to play?
And there are a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Video games out there, however, one always stood out to me, and that is Yu-Gi-Oh! The Sacred Cards, released for the Game Boy Advance back in 2002. While most Yu-Gi-Oh! Games were a duel simulator where you just duel characters sequentially through a menu, Sacred Cards is more of a JRPG approach with a big world to explore and a story that loosely follows the Season 2 plot of the anime. It's a really charming game that I have very fond memories of, and so I decided that today we're going to be getting every achievement in this game using Retro Achievements, a platform that adds achievement support to classic games such as this one. There are a total of 64 achievements to collect in this set, and we will be getting every single one of them in this video. Most of these are tied to just completing the main story, but there are some fun side challenges as well, which will spice up this playthrough. I played this game multiple times, so I'm pretty familiar with it, so I'm excited to see if this achievement set can put up a good challenge. If you're new to the channel, my name is Nostalgic Juice. I'm on a quest to complete all the classic games that I grew up with, so if you like achievement hunting videos like this, then do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. With the introduction out of the way,
It's time to duel!
our adventure begins in our room. Our orange-capped self-insert character meets up with Yugi and Joey on the day of the Battle City tournament. Joey asks us if we have a good deck, and if you've played this game, you know the starting deck is absolute trash, so the answer to that question is a resounding no. We head outside and get a nice opening speech by Seto Kaiba. He explains that the Battle City tournament is taking place all over the city, and that in order to reach the finals, we'll have to obtain 6 locator cards by defeating other duelists. After the speech, we get to roam around the plaza a bit. We have to challenge all of the main characters to a duel, which they'll decline since the tournament hasn't started yet, but the game doesn't ever tell you that you have to do this. I remember the first time I played this, I was stuck here for like an hour. Once you challenge all of the main characters, then the tournament will officially begin. At this point, we can challenge other NPCs to duels, however, if we want locator cards, we'll have to win against the main characters. But they won't just let you duel them. You have to earn that honor by leveling up your duelist level, or in some cases, prove yourself by dueling other NPCs. That's the case for our first opponent, so we'll head to the alley to duel one of his buddies. Since this is our first duel, I'll briefly explain how it works for those who are unfamiliar. Yu-Gi-Oh! The Sacred Cards was created before the rules of the actual card game were officially made, so duels in this game work a little bit differently. The goal is still pretty much the same. Both players have 8,000 life points, and the goal is to reduce your opponent's life points down to 0. You do that by attacking with monster cards. Monsters have an attack and a defense point value, and when you attack an opponent's monster, the one with more points is the winner. If your opponent has no monsters on the field, then you can attack them directly, and your monster's attack points are deducted from their life points. Monsters can perform one action each turn. In most cases, that action is going to be attacking, but some monsters have effects which can be activated instead, like Doron for example, whose effect lets us create a copy of himself. Another action is sacrificing, where you can send the monster to the graveyard in order to summon a monster of a higher level. There's also spells and trap cards, which we'll get into later as the starting deck doesn't have many of those, and that about covers the basic rules. There are some other rules to go over, but I'll cover those later when they come up. This first duel is pretty much a freebie. The opponent has nothing in their deck strong enough to take out any of our monsters, so it's just attacking them until they're defeated. They're so bad that we even got our first achievement here for winning without losing a single life point. Now that we've proven ourselves, we can challenge Bones for our first locator card. His cards are only slightly stronger than the last guy, but I got a terrible opening hand, so I had to go on the defense while he chipped away at my life points. I was eventually able to get a strong enough monster on the field and then tributed it for an even stronger one. This is still a bad position to be in though, as he does have a Pumpkin King in his deck, which is his ace card. With 1800 attack points, it would be pretty much game over if he gets it out, and as long as he has monsters to sacrifice, it's a threat. Thankfully, it didn't come out, and once his field was empty, it was pretty much game over for him. We won the duel and got his Pumpkin King as a prize, which we can't actually use yet because our duelist level is too low, but more importantly, we got our first locator card and another achievement. To increase our duelist level, we can duel NPCs who don't really offer up much of a challenge, but we do get more prize cards, deck capacity, and domino, which is the game's currency. We can spend our domino at the card shop to buy cards to strengthen our deck. I picked up the Hourglass of Life, which is one of the best early game cards to get, as well as Harpy's Feather Duster, which isn't as useful, but it has a low deck cost, which is important because in this game, you can't just add any card to your deck that you want. Every card has a deck cost, and you can only have as much of that cost as your deck capacity will allow. The better the card is, the more it's gonna cost. So having some cheaper cards is good, even if they're not all that useful, because it allows you to spend more points on the better cards. It's designed this way so you can't just grab a bunch of OP cards from the start and then breeze through the game. You'll have to strategize and build your deck carefully, balancing the good cards with some cheaper ones. There's also a cheat code that you can enter into the password machine, which gets you 50 more deck capacity points and another achievement. I sold a bunch of the cards that we won't be using, and I spent some more money picking up some other cards to power up my deck, as well as some cards that we're going to need for achievements later in the run. With my deck upgraded, it's time to take on our next opponent, Roba, but first we'll have to defeat his brothers. Their cards aren't much stronger than what we've been facing so far, so the duel isn't very challenging. However, I did get to use a ritual spell card for an achievement. Ritual spell cards are these special blue cards, and they allow us to summon a monster by meeting specific conditions. In this case, we need a Mask of Darkness, as well as 2 other monsters to tribute. This is a big cost, however all ritual monsters are divine type, which is important for reasons I'll explain later. These monsters also have a very high deck cost normally if we were to put them into the deck, but by using their ritual spells instead, which have no deck cost, this is a good way to get strong monsters while saving deck capacity. There's also a bunch of achievements tied to different ritual monsters, which is why I'll be buying every ritual card in the shop as I play through the game. Getting back to the duel, with my Mask of Darkness, I beat the first brother, and I also defeated the second brother with the same ritual monster, which I thought was kinda funny. And then it was time to duel Roba. He's only a little bit harder than Bones, but still not enough to put up any kind of a fight. With the field full of monsters, I take him down and win his Jinzo, which again we can't use because our duelist level is below its deck cost. But we also got another locator card and an achievement. Our duelist level is holding us back a little bit, so I decided to go around and duel all the NPCs that we can. During this duel, I got to do a very cheeky play here. See, there's no turn order in this game. You can summon monsters, attack, play spells and traps in any order that you want, unlike the real card game where turns have to go in a specific order. This allows for some really jank-ass plays like sacrificing a monster, then activating Dark Hole to clear the field, and then summoning your higher level monster once the coast is clear. If you tried to do this in real Yu-Gi-Oh!, you'd be getting a judge called on you and you'd get ejected from the tournament. I also got to use that Hourglass of Life card, whose effect is I could pay 1000 life points and power up my monsters. And you can see why I said this is a very good early game card, especially when you combo it with something like Doron. We also picked up the achievement for reaching Duelist level 100 while farming all these NPCs. In between duels, I also kept checking back at the card shop to pick up more cards. Trapmaster is another fantastic card for the early game, and I also grabbed Beckon to Darkness, Infinite Dismissal, and Widespread Ruin, which are some great low-cost cards with useful effects. I'll explain what these cards do in the video as they come up in duels, which I think is a better way of doing it than just info dumping all at once. Back in the plaza, we see Bones, who tells us he got kicked out of the graveyard by a ghoul, so we'll have to go avenge him. Ghouls are the bad guys in this game, and they all use the Yami field spell, which powers up their fiend and shadow monsters. But field spells can sometimes work in our favor as well. I got a good starting hand here using Beckon to Darkness, which destroys an opponent's monster. And my Mask of Darkness is powered up by his field spell. This guy runs an Exodia deck, but he doesn't really get how Exodia works, so defeating him wasn't difficult. I also got to use the Widespread Ruin we picked up, which destroys an attacking monster. By putting a monster in defense, the AI will always attack into it, so we can easily bait them into this trap. With the ghoul defeated, we get another achievement, and Bones gets his home back. And now we can duel him as many times as we want to farm deck capacity, duelist level, and domino. He isn't any more difficult on the second time, but remember how I said he has one card that's good? Yeah, well, he got to play it this time, and I was so scared the first loss of this run would be against Bones of all people. But thankfully, Beckon to Darkness saves the day and took out his Pumpkin King, so we're able to recover and defeat him a second time. Now that our duelist level is high enough, we can challenge Rex Raptor for another locator card. He uses a dinosaur themed deck and starts the duel with the Wasteland field spell, which powers up all of his monsters. Luckily for us, we got a great starting hand, including Sandstone, who's also buffed by his field spell. So we're able to take Rex down without too much trouble and get another locator card and an achievement. Rex is also another duelist that you can repeatedly duel to farm deck capacity, domino, and duelist level if you're looking to do some farming. After defeating Rex, we talk to this NPC who tells us about some shady dealings going down at the card shop. We get there and this creepy character tells us that we've been making a name for ourselves, and you know what? He's not wrong. Not to toot my own horn, but this is only my second video on this channel and we're already at 8 subscribers, so we're definitely climbing up the ranks. Arcana leads us downstairs where he challenges us to a high-stake duel where the loser gets sent to the Shadow Realm. Oh wait, what? Chopped up? Damn, I didn't realize we're playing by the original anime rules here. Arcana runs a burn deck, which in this game isn't really a thing. There are monsters that can deal effect damage, but not like enough to actually win. And as a side note, I'm betting you're probably thinking by now that this game is too easy since none of these duels have provided much of a challenge. Trust me, we're still in the early game here, the difficulty does spike up a little bit later. After we defeat Arcana, he drops dead and we get another achievement. You would think that the sight of a man dying in a Saw-like death game would traumatize our little orange hat wearing hero, but nah man, we got cards to buy. I picked up some more cards we'll need later for achievements, as well as some cards to power up our deck. Now we have access to a few more areas to explore. The art gallery, which is being guarded by security guards, so we can't actually go in there, but we can duel Bakura here, and I managed to get a full field with an Hourglass of Life buff, defeating him and getting us another achievement. We can also go to the park where we see this creepy mime named Strings who we'll deal with later. I dueled some NPCs in the park who are optional, except for this one who first asked us about Yugi's whereabouts before agreeing to duel us. After defeating him, he tells us a tip that we can find Mai outside the building, which sounds not at all specific, but also like, dude, what's with this guy keeping tabs on everybody? We find Weevil Underwood in the corner of the park, and we have to defeat all 3 of his lackeys before he'll agree to duel us. These guys use forest-themed decks and have the field spell that buffs their monsters. This is where for most casual players, the game's going to get a little bit harder because these monsters now cross that 900 attack point threshold that outclasses any of the starting deck cards if you haven't been upgrading your deck. For us though, we have been strengthening our deck and we're now using trap cards, which are the most OP thing in this game. There are several traps which all destroy attacking monsters. They're very low cost, which saves deck capacity, and it allows our weaker monsters to stay alive so they can be tributed for the next turn to summon a stronger monster. We can even summon out weaker monsters and then bait out attacks as well. Using these tactics, we defeat all 3 of them, and now we get to challenge Weevil himself for another locator card. And Weevil actually gets a great start on us. Our starting hand wasn't great, and he has monsters that can survive attacks from our strongest low-level monsters. He managed to assemble a board against me, but that's when I got the card I was looking for to turn things around. One single card that would single-handedly render Weevil's entire deck useless. What card could that possibly be? Exodia? The Blue Eyes White Dragon? The Egyptian Gods? Nope, it's Flame Viper, a level 2 monster with 400 attack points that came in our starter deck. And the reason why he's so powerful is that there's one more mechanic in this game that I haven't explained yet, and that is type advantages. Monsters each have a type and an attribute. The type is things like Dragon or Spellcaster, and that matters for things like field spells, but the attribute uses a Pokemon-style advantage system, except in this game, it's not just a slight buff, it is a straight-up win condition. If 2 monsters battle and one of them has type advantage, that monster wins automatically regardless of how many attack points it has. Even Weevil's strongest monster, the Insect Queen, fully powered up to over 4,000 attack points, gets destroyed by this tiny little Flame Viper. And Weevil's deck exclusively has forest monsters, which as you can see are weak against pyro monsters. If I wanted to, I could literally sit here and wait for him to run out of cards and he'll lose automatically, as he has nothing in his deck that can defeat the Flame Viper. And that's exactly what I did because there's an achievement for doing so. And of course, we also got the achievement for getting his locator card. They say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again but expecting different results, and if that's true, then Weevil is truly insane because he refuses to admit defeat unless we defeat him 2 more times, after which he finally takes the L and accepts that we're just better than him. He then tells us the reason why Kaiba is hosting this tournament in the first place is to try to locate some powerful cards, and he hopes that they'll show up during the tournament. I personally think eBay would have been a lot easier, to be honest, but I guess this is what happens when you're a billionaire who spends money on a Blue Eyes themed jet plane. Following that NPC's tip, we do in fact find Mai outside the building and challenge her to a duel. She's an optional duel that you only get to do if you talked to that NPC earlier. And she's actually a little bit more difficult. She uses a deck with winged beasts and a field spell that buffs her monsters but doesn't really do anything for ours. They are weak to forest type monsters, so I was able to go on the defense a little bit with my Abyss Flower, but unlike Weevil, Mai does not exclusively use one type of monster in a game where monster type advantages are an instant win, so eventually she's able to destroy it. Thankfully, it bought me some time to find a card to fight back with, but not by much. It was only a matter of time before Mai got something stronger out. Thankfully, I drew a Doron who, thanks to his duplication ability, left me with the monster to tribute for a stronger one on the next turn, and this is when I finally started to get some momentum going. And Mai even had the nerve to try to use a Flame Viper against me, who fell victim to a trap card. What do I look like, Weevil? Come on! Defeating Mai gets us another achievement. I head inside the building and find Joey wasting his money on a claw machine instead of competing in this tournament. Then I went upstairs to duel some more NPCs just to farm some more points. Usually nothing notable happens during these regular NPC duels, but this time one of them actually summoned a monster with 2200 defense points, which is something I actually would not have been able to attack over. He could have probably won this duel if it wasn't for the really dumb AI, because when I put a weak monster out, this genius decided to switch his monster to attack mode and destroy it. And while it had 2200 defense points, it only had 800 attack points, so we were able to destroy it. The next area that we unlocked is the bridge, where we find Kaiba beating up some amateurs who were left so traumatized they didn't even want to duel me afterwards. But we do have one person to duel here, and it's Strings, the mime from earlier in the park. The duel starts off kind of weak. I don't have great cards, but I do have Skell Angel, whose effect lets me draw a card, and it's a light type, so it has type advantage against his fiend monsters. I buffed it up with the Hourglass of Life, who's also a light type monster, so things are looking good until he drops a Revival Jam, who has the same duplication effect as Doron, except these guys are a lot stronger. I decided that I have to try and stall out for an answer, so I summoned Doron and used his effect just to put up some monsters. Next turn, Strings took out 3 of them, and I used the Trap Master, whose effect lets me set an acid trap hole for free. I was hoping this would buy me some time, but Strings has something special up his sleeve. Slifer the Sky Dragon, one of the 3 Egyptian god cards which are the most powerful cards in the game. It's powered up over to 10,000 attack points, and I have nothing that can stop it since god cards in this game are immune to all spell and trap card effects. After assessing the situation and trying to think of a way out of this mess, I realized I had nothing. So in a desperate attempt, I sent Flame Viper to go battle against a literal god. I mean, it did work against Weevil, so maybe it'll work here, right? After our first loss of the run, I went back to the card shop to upgrade our deck. I managed to pick up our own copy of Revival Jam, as well as Raigeki and Darkness Approaches, 2 very useful spell cards, which I'll explain in a little bit. I also grabbed some new monsters and a few more of those useful trap cards. With the deck improved, I went to go rematch against Strings. This duel started off better. I opened with Witch's Apprentice, whose effect gives her a buff, as well as a widespread ruin trap card. That was enough to put Strings on defense, so I kept the pressure going with Doron. And on the next turn, I use Raigeki, which destroys every monster on his field, which will prevent him from getting Slifer out, because the only way to beat the Egyptian gods in this game is to prevent them from being summoned, which isn't the most difficult thing to do as they require 3 tributes. Then I use Darkness Approaches, which flips your monsters face down, which allows you to reuse their effects, so Witch's Apprentice can buff herself a second time and Doron can create even more copies. Next turn, I drew into my Revival Jam, and the sheer amount of monsters I have out is enough to overwhelm Strings and defeat him. And that got us another copy of Revival Jam, an achievement, and we got to have a chat with the big bad of the game, Merrick Ishtar, who has the power to mind control his ghouls with the power of his Millennium Rod. He explains his motives, which is to gather rare cards, and then he leaves us with a vague threat to cherish our friends while we can. Instead of doing that though, I headed to the aquarium where we find Joey getting his ass kicked by Mako Tsunami, and rather than remind him how much I love and cherish him, I decided to add insult to injury by defeating him as well. I mean, come on Joey, you fell for the classic Trap Master bait, what do you expect? I challenged Mako to a duel, but he declined, so I have to prove myself by dueling every NPC in the aquarium. And these duels were actually kind of rough. For most casual players, this is about the point where they get stuck, because pretty much every monster these guys have is over 1,000 attack points thanks to their field spell. And the starting deck doesn't give you a type advantage out like Flame Viper. So if you haven't been deck building by now, you're pretty much forced to. The first duel, I managed to squeeze out a win by hiding behind trap cards and keeping his field empty until I eventually drew something stronger. The next duel, I managed to get both Doron and Revival Jam duplicated and buffed by the Hourglass of Life, so I just completely obliterated them. And the last NPC I beat once again, simply by spamming trap cards and not letting him get an attack in. He eventually went through all of my trap cards and got a monster out, but by then it was too late. And now that we've impressed Mako, we can challenge him to a duel for his locator card. And I started the duel with Revival Jam, which if you haven't noticed, is buffed by his own field spell since it's a water type. So yeah, free 1900 attack point monsters combined with cards like Stop Defense that prevent him from putting monsters in defense, and a Trap Master to bait out his attacks and empty his field, this duel was over pretty quick. We got his locator card and another achievement. Back in the plaza, I went to go visit Yugi in his grandpa's shop to make sure that creepy NPC isn't still stalking him, and we learned that the ghouls have captured our friends Joey and Taya. Not only that, but we see they've taken over the entire city. They've kicked out Esparoba and Bones for a second time, they're in the aquarium, the art gallery, the park, but not the arcade because I guess they're not gamers. These ghouls are pretty much the same as the ones we previously fought, so compared to the last few duels, we're back on easy street. Except for one of them, Bandit Keith, who we find taking out Weevil Underwood, and he didn't even do it with Flame Viper, so you know he's a good duelist. Keith is a very strong opponent normally, a first time player's run killer for sure, but I had the absolute dumbest duel against him. I got a weak opening hand with no monsters, so I set an acid trap hole which he attacked into on his turn. Then I drew Hourglass of Life, but it's powered down by the field spell, and I know Bandit Keith's monsters are strong enough that using its effect won't do anything, so I set it in defense mode, hoping that Bandit would attack into it with a Fiend type monster, and then I can win off type advantage. Sadly, that did not happen, but I drew into the Unhappy Maiden on my next turn, who has 0 attack points, but again, she's also a light monster, so I was still hoping to survive off type advantage. But then on his next turn, Keith doesn't summon a monster. It's not entirely uncommon for him to do this, he does run a lot of high level monsters which require tributes, but I couldn't capitalize on it because I also didn't get any monsters. And this continued for, I kid you not, 6 turns. Finally, on turn 7, I draw a monster, but Bandit Keith must have watched this video because he's running all the annoying trap cards that I am. So it's not for another 2 turns that I'm finally able to start getting some attacks in. And on his next turn, he finally gets the monster out too, but then runs into my annoying trap cards, and this whole duel just at a standstill. Finally, I was able to get my Revival Jams out, Raigeki his field, and then beat him down, getting us an achievement, and we also picked up another achievement for defeating all 10 ghouls throughout the city. Back at Yugi's grandpa's shop, we get a lead that Seto Kaiba should be able to track down Joey's location using the GPS signal in his dual disc, so Yugi joins us as we go to try to look for him. We begin our search at Kaiba Corp headquarters, but his security won't tell us anything until we defeat him in a duel, which I thought would be a good chance to try out this new deck that I built. Considering that I now had 2 Revival Jams and they got boosted by the Water Field spell, I wanted to try to make a deck around that theme. Unfortunately, this guy runs a Thunder deck, which has type advantage to all of my stuff. He got some good hits in, but I was ultimately able to overpower him despite the type advantage, and then he tells us that Mokuba should know where his big brother is. While we're here though, I went ahead and dueled the computer because it's another quick and easy oh come on! Why does everybody here use a Thunder deck all of a sudden? I did actually end up losing this first duel, but just like Weevil, I'm insane. I went right back for a rematch, which I also lost. But damn it, I just built this deck! I really didn't want to have to scrap it already, so I kept trying, and on my 3rd attempt, I finally got the win by hiding behind trap cards, getting us another achievement. With that out of the way, we went to go track down Mokuba, who's being chased by some ghouls. And finally, I get to actually use my new deck. The strategy is to use cards like Revival Jam and Toadmaster, who can bring out more monsters due to their effects, power them up with Hourglass of Life or the Field Spell, and I actually got to do that this time. See, as long as I'm not using Thunder monsters, this deck is actually good. After defeating these ghouls, we get another little chat with Merrick Ishtar and an achievement. Mokuba tells us where we can find Seto Kaiba, so we head to the art gallery to meet up with him. We tell him about what happened to Joey, and he tells us he can care less about a dreg like him. I don't actually know what that word means, to be honest, but he tells us we can find Joey at the pier. Upon arriving, we have to face off against Bandit Keith once again, and he starts off with the duel very strong with me on the ropes. Fortunately, I drew into Raigeki, which can destroy all of his Wait, what? Anti-Raigeki. You mean to tell me there's a card specifically to counter Raigeki? A card that would be useless at any other time, and this guy just so happens to have it at this precise moment. This really is like the anime. Keith gets me down to my last 400 life points, but I managed to somehow hold on and regain control. I used Harpy's Feather Duster to get rid of the rest of his trap cards. Thankfully, he doesn't have an anti-Feather Duster or something. And eventually, I got my Field Spell out and took back the lead. I could have beat him here, but I added a new ritual monster to my deck, and summoning it is another achievement, and I figured this is a good time to go for that, so I stalled out a bit until I drew into it, got the achievement for summoning it, and then I used my shiny new Fortress Rail to attack. I used my Gruesome Goo to attack for game, getting us another achievement for defeating him a second time. We get to the pier and Merrick has Joey and Taya under mind control and forces Yugi into a duel against Joey where the loser will be dragged into the ocean via an anchor. Yugi somehow loses to Joey and gets pulled under, but we're able to save him and show him how it's done. Joey for some reason is now trying to use a burn deck, and as you can see, the burn effect cards in this game don't really do much. And come on, this guy's summoning fire monsters against my water monsters. Come on, Joey, this is basic Pokemon 101, water beats fire. How did Yuki lose to this guy? Merrick then starts crashing out and tries to get Joey to drown in the water, but somehow Joey just breaks free from the mind control, which, okay, I get it. I watched the anime. Joey is like super strong-willed. That's like his whole thing. That's how he holds his own against these magically supercharged freaks. But Taya was also mind-controlled, and the game never explains how she broke free. And Taya doesn't even know how to read her cards, but you know what? Let's just not ask any questions. Next, we head back to the art gallery where we meet up with Merrick's sister, Ashizu, who wants to help us put a stop to him. But first, we're going to have to go back and edit our deck a little bit because there are 2 duels coming up, each with a specific achievement, and the second duel happens right after the first one, so we have to build a deck that can accomplish both. The first is for winning against Ashizu by decking her out like we did with Weevil, except this time she's actually using good cards. She almost got the win on us as my starting hand was awful and I wasn't getting any monsters, but thankfully I was able to deal with her monsters in the meantime using spells and trap cards. Ashizu does have an Egyptian god card in her deck like Strings did, so it's very important we do not let her get 3 monsters on the field to sacrifice. Eventually, I got my Revival Jams out and then reused their effects thanks to Darkness Approaches, buffed them all with Hourglass of Life, so with the field full of powered up jams, I was able to hold off the rest of her attacks long enough for her to run out of cards and get us the achievement. And we got a second achievement for reaching Duelist level 300. She then explains to us that Merrick is after the 3 Egyptian god cards because somehow these trading cards will give him ultimate power. I mean, he already has the power of mind control, right? He can literally just win every duel by making his opponent surrender, but I guess that's just not as fun. Ashizu has one final test for us where we have to duel Seto Kaiba, who, again with the dreg? What does that even mean? Is it a slur? Is it gonna get my YouTube channel banned? For this duel, we have to summon a Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon against him for an achievement, which requires 3 tributes, kind of like a Timu Egyptian god card. Fortunately for us, we started off very strong, building a field full of powerful monsters and plenty of traps to hold off anything Kaiba has for us. It was just a matter of waiting until we drew the dragon, summoned it, and then it immediately dies to a trap card, but we still got the achievement. Defeating Kaiba proves to Ashizu that we are in fact worthy, and she gives us our very own Egyptian god card, Obelisk the Tormentor. But I just care about the achievements, so I immediately tried to pawn them off at the card shop, only to find out they don't want to buy it. So much for unlimited power. With the gang back together, it's time to head to the tournament finals, where we meet up with the other finalists, including this guy named Namu, who's definitely not the bad guy we saw earlier, okay? I cannot stress that enough. See this guy? This is the bad guy, alright? So there's no confusion. This guy bad, this guy good, okay? We get to watch some cutscenes of the other finalists battling, and the first person is Yugi versus Bakura, except this time it's the evil Bakura. You can tell because his hair gets a little spikier. See? Soft hair is good guy, spiky hair, bad guy. Yugi defeats Bakura using his god card, Slifer the Sky Dragon, and now it's time for the final duel of the game against Merrick Ishtar. There is an achievement where we have to win via the effect of Destiny Board, and Destiny Board is a series of 5 cards, each with a letter that when combined spells the word final. Assembling all 5 cards wins us the duel automatically. So the strategy is similar to when we decked out Ishizu. Just stall and don't let him get 3 monsters to sacrifice for his Egyptian god card, which is easier said than done this time because the difficulty just spiked up, and he's summoning very strong monsters and using really good cards. Luckily, I was able to get out our shiny new Egyptian god card, Obelisk the Tormentor, and it's pretty much game over. The only card he has that can survive my god card is his own god card, but none of his other monsters stand a chance at surviving. And then of course the other card that makes this deck work is Skellangel, whose effect lets us draw a card, and we can recycle that effect by using Darkness Approaches. So all we have to do is wait until we got all 5 cards to win the duel and getting us another achievement. After the duel, everybody keeps insisting that Namu was the real bad guy, but that's literally impossible. His hair is not even that spiky. Uh-oh. So after that crazy unexpected plot twist, it's Joey's turn to duel Merrick, and we all know how that's gonna go. We've seen this guy duel. But don't worry, his death isn't for nothing. We do get another achievement for reaching the finals. Next up is Kaiba versus Mai, who says that she wants to teach him a lesson for looking down on women. Now, I'm all for girl bossing, but I don't think I've ever seen Kaiba look down on women. Unless... Oh, is that what that means? Well, now I hope Mai wins. Well, okay, she's obviously not going to be a match for Kaiba, but at least this wasn't a shadow game, so she's not gonna die. Oh, never mind. Now we have to face off against Yugi, and we have another achievement for beating him using the effect of Exodia. Exodia is basically the same thing as Destiny Board, just this time we need the 5 pieces in our hand and not on the field, but the strategy is still the same. Don't let him assemble 3 monsters to tribute for a god card, use cards like Pot of Greed and Skellangel to let us draw cards from our deck until we have all 5 pieces. And we started off really good with 3 pieces and Revival Gems. Yugi does have strong enough monsters to deal with them, but we have enough trap cards as well as Swords of Revealing Light that I added to the deck, which prevents him from attacking for 3 turns. And after I got Obelisk out on the field, we were set to just wait until we drew the final piece and won the duel, getting us 2 achievements in the process. We also get Yugi's god card, Slifer the Sky Dragon, as a prize. Then Kaiba loses to Merrick like the dreg that he is, and it's our turn to face off against the real final duel of the game. Merrick's deck, as you would expect, is the strongest one we've faced so far, using cards like Exxon Universe, which can deal 1800 points of burn damage without even attacking. And to make things harder, there's an achievement for having all 3 god cards on the field at the same time, so we actually do have to let him summon his god card at some point. And its effect can deal as much damage to our life points as his own life points, so we also have to make sure that we establish our field first and then get him low enough on life points before letting him get out his god card. By this point though, we have so many stalling trap cards and duplicating monsters, it's only a matter of time before we get our first god card and then our second. At which point we go ahead and just let him get out his god card, the Winged Dragon of Ra. I smash into it with Obelisk, causing both of our monsters to get destroyed, getting us the achievement, and then deal the final blow with Slifer the Sky Dragon, defeating Merrick once and for all, getting us an achievement for attaining his god card, and saving the world from a guy having good trading cards, I guess. And that wraps up the game's main story, but of course we still have a few achievements to clean up, so I loaded the file back up and got to work bullying Bones with our endgame cards. We get an achievement for dealing 8,000 points of damage in a single attack, which we can do by using Slifer the Sky Dragon's effect, which powers him up for every card in our hand. Then I got the Metamorphosis achievement by getting a Petite Moth all the way to a perfectly ultimate Great Moth. All you have to do for this one is keep the little guy alive for each turn, and then he'll go through a new stage of evolution. Just use traps to stop your opponent from attacking him before the transformation is complete. Then I got another achievement by using an effect to summon Valkyrion the Magnet Warrior. To do this, all you need is Alpha, Beta, and Gamma, the Magnet Warrior, on the field at the same time. They're strong monsters, so unlike Petite Moth, you won't have to defend them against a weak opponent like Bones. And then we have the Ritual Monster achievements. There is like 20 of these, each of them for summoning a different Ritual Monster. I'll be honest, this was my least favorite part of the run. A few of these make sense because Ritual Summoning is a very underutilized mechanic. Many casual players don't even know how it works. But over 20 of these was just incredibly tedious. If you don't have the cards that you need, you can use the password machine in the card shop to enter in a code, which puts the card into the shop for you to purchase. These codes were found on the real Yu-Gi-Oh cards back in the day, and it was a way for you to get your favorite cards into the game, which I thought was a really nice feature. But of course, it's 2025, we can just look up the card codes online. I waited until now to mention the password machine because whenever I play this game, I make it a rule for myself that I don't use it because I think it's more fun to work with the cards that you get randomly from the game, but for these achievements, the password machine comes in real handy. I recommend building a deck specifically for these achievements. Include plenty of duplication cards like Doron and Revival Jam, as well as 3 copies of Darkness Approaches so you can recycle their effects since you'll have to do lots of tributing. Then the rest of the deck is just the ritual spells and the specific monsters needed for them. Go against a weak opponent like Bones and just go one by one summoning each monster. It's a pretty tedious process. It took me about 30 minutes I'd say, maybe longer for others since I'm pretty familiar with this game, but eventually you will get them all. All that's left now are the 2 achievements for getting to Duelist level 400 and 500. It doesn't matter who you duel, they'll all give you roughly the same amount of XP, which is 3 points per duel. You probably won't have to grind this out too much if you've been dueling every single NPC throughout the game, but I did skip a good chunk of them. But this is a good point to tell you guys some secrets that you might not know about, such as if you go back to the pier, you could find this group of NPCs hiding from the ghouls in the warehouse to the left, and the warehouse to the right, you could find Bandit Keith, free from Merrick's mind control, but obviously still traumatized by the whole ordeal. If you duel him, you get the option to tell him it's over or it's not over. And for once in this entire game, this decision actually has consequences. If you tell him it's not over, he'll agree to keep dueling you and pick himself back up. And then you can duel him as many times as you want. If you tell him it's over, he leaves and he'll never return. As far as I know, this is the only time that dialogue matters in this game. There's other times where you can select a dialogue, like at the start of the game when Joey asks us if we built a good deck or not, but that just leads to some different dialogue options. Nothing gameplay-wise changes, so it's weird that the developers of this game made this the one and only decision that means something. You can also find Mako Tsunami here at the pier, but don't duel him because he uses Torrential Tribute and he'll wipe out your entire field. You know it's okay when I do it, not when it's done against me. I decided to just go ahead and farm Bones because it's easier, so after a couple dozen duels, we eventually got both achievements for getting level 400 and level 500 duelist level. And with that, we have officially Oh, wait a minute, I forgot one. That's okay, let me just go and check which one it was, probably just another ritual monster I missed, and it's a missable achievement. Yeah, after defeating Joey on the pier, I was supposed to go duel against my secret admirer at the aquarium, so I had to replay the game up until that point so I can get this last achievement. Luckily, I really liked this game, so I wasn't too upset about that. It was also a good chance to try out our first Twitch stream, so shout out to everybody who tuned into that. I consider that my soft launch. We got some audio issues figured out, so the next stream will hit the ground running. So be sure to follow me over on Twitch TV/NostalgicJuice so you can catch me live getting these achievements. It is pretty funny though that our final duel of this journey was not against Merrick or any other antagonist, it was against this random guy who I'm sure many people who played this game probably don't even know exists, because you have such an oddly specific window to face him. Like, you have no reason to return to the aquarium at this point, so unless you just like exploring, you'll never see this guy. But defeating him does get us our final achievement. So now we have officially mastered Yu-Gi-Oh! The Sacred Cards. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. As I said earlier, this is my second video on this channel. I'm gonna shoot for a new video like this every 2 weeks, but if I can keep up the pace I've been working at so far, I might be able to do a video every week. So if you enjoyed the videos and you want to see more, please do me a favor, leave me a like and a comment. The comment can be anything. Tell me your favorite moment from the video, suggest a game that you think I'd enjoy playing next, tell me your go-to Taco Bell order. Any and all comments are appreciated. That's what tells YouTube that the video is good and worth showing to more people. And again, feel free to follow me on Twitch. I plan to do longer games like Zelda Wind Waker or maybe some Animal Crossing. Those games are likely going to take weeks, maybe even months to master, so I think streaming the process over a long period of time will be fun, and then we'll turn them into big videos. So if you want to be one of the first viewers for the real first stream, feel free to drop a follow over on Twitch. And of course, you can always follow me on Retro Achievements as well if you want to compare stats or see what kind of games I'm working on next. That's all for today, gamers. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, stay juicy, gamers. No, that's dumb. Hang on. How about, keep it nostalgic? No, that's dumb too. Okay, how about, but that's just a theory. A juice theory. Alright, screw it. I don't know how to end a video. Here's a montage of everybody dying in this game.